Men no longer realize they're being tested until it's too late. You think she's just being friendly? You think that look was random? No. Those are signals, subtle, cunning, and dangerous. A married woman who still tries to get your attention isn't searching for love. She's searching for proof that she still has value. The real question is, how will you respond? Will you step back, or will you walk right into the trap and throw yourself off a cliff? In this video, I'll show you 8 clear signs that you're being dragged into a game that won't end well. If you're a real man, you need to see it coming. Keep watching. Every second of this video might save you from a mistake you can't undo. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and like if you're new here. It helps me keep bringing you more valuable content. She looks at you, not by accident, but on purpose. The kind of stare that only a woman stuck long enough in a dull marriage learns to master, long enough to know what's missing and bold enough to go out and find it. That's not attraction. It's a signal. A quiet question. Do you see me? The real danger isn't the look. It's how you respond to it. The more undisciplined you are, the easier it is to mistake attention for value. You think she sees the real you? Get real. What she sees isn't your soul. It's the emptiness in her own life. And you're being handed a role, not because you're special, but because you're too weak to say no. Women don't glance around. They choose who and when to look at. It may seem innocent, but it's actually a test to see who breaks first. And if you hold her gaze too long, congrats, you just passed the dumbest test of your life. Can he be controlled? Too many men fall for this without even knowing it. They think they've been chosen, when in reality, they've been recruited as a temporary emotional stand-in, a dopamine fix, an emotional toy for a woman taking a breather between disappointments. She might never cross a physical line, but she's already got you on a leash with something far more dangerous: your attention. If you're a man, you need to get this. Not every look is an invitation. Some looks are bait, followed by a mess, broken trust, and the kind of self-loathing that sticks. You can't blame anyone if you fall into it, but you can choose not to step in. A strong man isn't someone who's immune to temptation. He's someone who sees it and keeps walking like it means nothing. She's married. That's the fact. No look, no matter how loaded, changes that. Don't fool yourself. Don't romanticize the tension. If she respected her husband, that look wouldn't exist. And if you respected yourself, you wouldn't return it. You're not a backup plan. You're a man. And a man doesn't jump into someone else's emotional drama just because of a few seconds of tension that smells like danger. Let's be real. That look isn't love. It's an invitation to a war you can't win. And if you truly know your worth, you don't sign up for battles that should have never started. When a married woman starts telling you about the emotional distance in her marriage, you need to wake up. Fully. Because that's not a confession. It's the opening move in an emotional negotiation you never agreed to join. And if you're not sharp enough, you'll walk in like some emotional hero, only to walk out like a clown, heart hollowed out and your dignity in shreds. She'll say things like, "He's not the same anymore," or "He's too busy to care," or "All he thinks about is work. He doesn't even see me anymore." At first, you'll think you're her rock, the trustworthy one, her emotional hero. But what's really happening? You're being pulled in to play the temporary stand-in. And if you take the bait, you become the bad guy, not because you meant to, but because you let someone else define your role. Snap out of it. She might be genuinely hurting, but pain isn't a reason to start another messy relationship. And it's sure as hell not a license for you to be the emotional band-aid for someone else's marriage. Don't let your empathy get twisted into stupidity. Compassion doesn't mean carrying someone else's emotional baggage until it crushes your own worth. Stoicism teaches us this. If it's not your business, don't get involved. Her marriage is her business. You don't need to, and you shouldn't, step in to fix a mess you didn't create, don't control, and will never fully understand. Weak men misread their role. They think they're in tune with women because they listen, empathize, offer advice, but in truth, they're just becoming a free, emotional dumping ground. Something she needs for now, not something she plans to keep. And once the pain passes, she goes back to her husband, or finds someone new, someone untouched by the mess you just soaked in. And you're left behind, drowning in nameless emotional chaos, asking yourself, what did I do wrong? You didn't mess up by acting. You messed up by thinking you had to. The truth is, if a woman no longer loves her husband, she should deal with that. With him or with her own conscience, not with you. You're not the cleanup crew. Let her own her choices and deal with the consequences. As a man, you don't help a woman by indulging her instability. You help her by standing firm, being clear, and refusing to become someone else's emotional tool. If you really want to help, hold the line. Say, I think you should talk to your husband about this, and walk away, without regret. She touches you. A playful pat while laughing, a light brush on the shoulder as she walks by, or simply standing just a little too close. You think it's random? It's not. It's a test. Women don't accidentally touch men they're not interested in. Even the lightest touch is a question. What will you do with this space I just crossed? If you do nothing, she knows you have boundaries. If you respond, even with the smallest gesture, she knows you're easy to sway. In this game, the man who can't control his reactions is always the one being led around. You need to understand, physical touch is primal language. It hits harder than words, it bypasses logic, and goes straight for instinct. The right touch at the right time can break the resolve of a man who's never once strayed. That's why it's used as a weapon. Soft, but lethal. Gentle, but deeply invasive. You don't need to fear women, but you do need to know where you're most likely to fall. If you're the kind of man who goes weak when someone gets physically close, then every one of those gestures is a cliff's edge. And that cliff? She didn't dig it. You walked right up to it yourself. Plenty of guys make excuses. It was just a touch, what's the big deal? But it's not about the action. It's about your reaction. How you respond to that breach reveals your entire internal rulebook. A man with principles doesn't need to be rude. He just knows how to speak in boundaries. A small step back, a calm, steady look, a neutral smile that doesn't open any doors. That's your message. I'm not playing this game. You might wonder, isn't that too rigid? No, you're defending your territory, both physical and mental. A man who doesn't guard his borders will always get pushed further. Today it's a touch, tomorrow it's a late-night drink. Then private messages, suggestive words, and a pile of chaos you'll never get a grip on. Stoicism doesn't tell you to run from temptation. It teaches you to stand in the middle of it without losing yourself. Because in the end, the man who deserves respect isn't the one who's never been tested. It's the one who never lets the test pull him away from who he is. A gentle touch is a silent invitation. Your answer doesn't come from your mouth. It shows in how you carry yourself. And if you're a man with discipline, you don't need to say no. You just don't step forward. If this video made you think, hit like now. Comment below. How have you applied Stoicism in your life? Stoic success, unbreakable mindset, total control. I wish he understood me like you do. If only he could talk to me the way you can. You remind me of how it felt to be cared for. Sound familiar? These soft words might sound like compliments, but they're baited compliments, a disguised trap aimed straight at your ego. Smart women rarely ask directly. They plant ideas, they light the spark for illusion, and if you're not grounded, you'll fall for it. You start to think you're different, special, the one who gets her. In a way, her cold husband never could. You see yourself as the exception in a sea of ordinary men. You believe you've been chosen. You haven't been chosen. You're being tested, and if you respond, you've already failed. When a woman starts comparing you to her husband, it's not to lift you up, it's to lower her own internal boundaries. She's creating a justification, not for you, but for herself. She needs to rationalize what she's feeling. I'm drawn to this man because my husband no longer deserves me. And if you're not wise enough to see it, you'll become an accomplice to her betrayal, even if you never lay a finger on her. Don't think you're clever just because you hear those words. She might say the same thing to another man someday, when you become the next boring husband in her life. Because a woman who uses comparison as a door to open up will use comparison as an excuse to walk out. It's a cycle. And if you step in, you're just one more link in a chain of ongoing disappointment. As a man, you need the clarity to recognize this. A woman with integrity doesn't drag you into her marriage to measure, to vent, or to seduce. She handles that at home. And if she's choosing to compare her husband to another man, choosing you as the star of that story, you should take a step back. You're not here to replace anyone. You're here to be a man. A real man. One who doesn't need validation through vague compliments and who doesn't need to outdo some husband just to feel his own worth. You weren't born to be someone's point of comparison, and you sure as hell weren't meant to be a temporary option for a woman with no self-restraint. Hold on to your pride. Don't let your emotions drag you down into the wreckage of a dying marriage. If you want to be a man of value, start by refusing the roles others try to assign you, especially when they come wrapped in flattery but reek of betrayal. If a married woman texts you at 11 p.m., don't fool yourself into thinking it's because she couldn't sleep. Women don't go looking for a chat in the middle of the night because they're tired. They go looking for an emotional substitute when they're emotionally starved. A late-night message is not harmless. It's a boundary breach, a signal that she doesn't respect the lines within her own marriage. But more importantly, it's a test of your character. She wants to see what you'll do when you know she's not alone. Yet she still chooses to reach out at a time when decent people have already put their phones on Do Not Disturb. You think you're special? You're not. You're just the door she knocks on when the other one jams. The real question is, will you have the guts to close it? Or will you let curiosity drag you in and lock yourself inside the chaos? Women don't pick that timing by accident. Late-night texts are a way to check if you're available. Nighttime is when a man's defenses are weakest, tired brain, lazy resistance, emotions more vulnerable. And if you answer, even casually, you flip the switch. She gets it. You think it's just a conversation. It's not. There's no such thing as just talking after 11 p.m. between a single man and a married woman. Every word is a moral step backward. Every reply is one step closer to the cliff. Think you're in control? You're not in control of the thing you keep pretending isn't a big deal. Stop lying to yourself. If you answer, it's because you want something. Attention, validation, maybe just a hit of being wanted. Whatever it is, you're betraying your own code, and you will pay for it. Maybe not now, but it's coming. In the form of lost self-respect, lost dignity, and maybe even the inability to see women in a healthy way again. A disciplined man doesn't reply to midnight messages from married women, not because he's scared of drama, but because he knows he's worth more than that. He doesn't take the role of the other guy, not even in a casual chat. He's not a prop in someone else's failing marriage. And most of all, he doesn't need to feel chosen by someone who's choosing the wrong method to fill a void. So next time a message lights up your screen at night, don't answer. Don't sit in silence, pretending it's noble. Delete it. And remember this, dignity never shows up after midnight in a secret conversation. She has a husband, but you never see him. No photos on social media, no mention in conversation, no introduction when she bumps into you in public. Even when you subtly ask, she dodges, or gives a vague response. And you start to get the message. You're being kept in a separate space, a space where her husband doesn't exist. That's not an accident, that's intentional. She's building a parallel world where you're the main character in a story that's detached from reality. A story with no responsibility, no commitment, and no truth. She's not hiding her husband because she's shy. She's hiding him because she knows if those two worlds collide, the illusion falls apart. And you'll wake up. Until then, she runs both lives in sync. In one, she's the wife. In the other, she's the free-spirited version of herself. A woman who belongs to no one, just looking for someone who gets her, who vibes well, who keeps things light and fun. And you, if you're not sharp, will think you're part of something special, private, even sacred. But the truth is, you're being cut out of reality. You're not seeing the full picture, because she knows if you did, you wouldn't stick around. Every ambiguous relationship relies on withholding information to keep the fantasy alive. Some men think they're clever because they can stay under the radar, seeing someone else's wife behind closed doors. They call it freedom, or genuine connection against all odds. But in reality, they're just a hidden toy, brought out when the husband isn't around, tucked away when real life shows up. Have you ever asked yourself, why hasn't she let you meet her husband? The brutal answer is, because she can't let him know you exist. And just as importantly, she doesn't want you to know who he really is. Stoicism teaches you to face reality as it is. No excuses, no sugarcoating. If a woman hides her marriage from you, she's not just lying to her husband, she's lying to you. And if you're okay with that, just because you're having a good time, then you're no more trustworthy than the man she's betraying. You're not a shadow figure in someone's half-truth. You're a man. And a man who walks upright doesn't accept a version of himself that needs to be hidden. Because if your presence in her life has to be concealed, there's nothing there to be proud of. At that point, you're not the one who made her feel alive again. You're just the proof that she's lost the integrity to be real with anyone. I've never felt this lonely before. Some nights I just want to disappear. No one really understands me. Sound familiar? That's not a complaint. That's an invitation, but not a direct one. It's softer, more subtle, and more dangerous. Because it hits the weakest spot in a man, the urge to be a hero for a woman's pain. When a married woman starts telling you about the loneliest time of her life, she's not looking for advice. She's opening up emotional space and quietly pulling you in. She paints a picture of a deserted corner in her soul, and then steps aside, waiting to see if you'll volunteer to fill it. And if you walk in with the mindset of wanting to help, you're lying to yourself. You're not helping anyone. You're just feeding your own desire to feel needed, to feel like the different one, the chosen one, the man she trusts in the middle of her collapse. But have you ever asked yourself, if she truly needed someone to lean on, why is she choosing you, a man with zero responsibility to her, instead of the one who vowed to walk through life with her? Because you're easier to control, less tied down, more willing to bend your principles for the feeling of being the one. That's not bravery. That's weakness in disguise, dressed up as compassion. And if you step into that role, you don't just lose your honor. You lose your grip on what's real and what's performance. Because once you've been cast as the stand-in, you no longer know where truth ends and manipulation begins. You might think, but she really needs me. Maybe she does, but she doesn't need you to change her life. She needs you to feel less guilty about the mess she's made of it. She wants you to confirm that opening up to a man who isn't her husband is somehow forgivable. And the second you nod along, you just stamped her betrayal with the seal of empathy. A man with backbone doesn't drown in late-night tears that don't belong to him. He knows that loneliness isn't a signal to step closer. It's a warning to stay away. Not everyone who's hurting needs to be rescued, especially when they're the one who walked into the pain by choice. And you, if you have discipline and self-respect, don't reach out just to be pulled into a bottomless pit where emotions are currency and your honor is the cost of admission. Remember this. Someone else's loneliness is not your responsibility, especially when they already have a person who once promised to carry it with them. If they can't face it inside their own marriage, then you were never meant to be the one to fix it. You're not a safe space for lost souls. You're a man, and a man doesn't offer shelter to people who refuse to face the storm in their own life. You joke, "Are you flirting with me?" She laughs, doesn't answer, doesn't deny it, but doesn't confirm it either. She leaves the question hanging in the air like a loaded trap that hasn't snapped. And there you are, stuck in place, waiting for a signal, like a soldier who doesn't know if it's time to attack or surrender. A mature, honest woman draws clear lines. But when she throws out half-jokes, lingering glances, and responses that walk the line between leaning in and pulling back, it's not confusion, it's strategy. She's maintaining the gray zone. That place where you're unsure of what you are, unsure of what this is, and that uncertainty is exactly where she wants you. She doesn't confirm, because if she does, things become clear, and clarity demands responsibility. But she also won't deny it, because if she shuts it down, you might walk away. And that's not what she wants either. She needs you to stay, not out of love, but because she needs an emotional stand-in to help her cope with a dying marriage. You're not her boyfriend, you're not her best friend, you're nothing official, but you're expected to show up whenever she needs to feel desired. Harsh? Yes. True? Also yes. That gray zone is where undisciplined men get swallowed whole. They don't fully step in, but they don't walk away either. They hang around, waiting for something to happen, not realizing that nothing ever will, except their own growing self-disgust. As a man, you've got to learn how to walk out of the gray. If a relationship has no name, no definition, no boundaries, then there's nothing worth staying for. Vague emotions are like a dull blade. They won't kill you all at once, but they'll cut into your dignity until you don't even recognize yourself. You want a woman who's real? Choose the one who speaks straight, not the one who makes you guess. Because if you're guessing, you're not chosen. You're just a piece on her board, moved around for control. A strong man doesn't need to be pursued, and he sure as hell doesn't need to be kept in limbo. He needs clarity. He respects himself enough not to linger at the doorstep of a relationship with no name. He walks, decisively, unapologetically. Because if a woman can't admit her feelings and isn't decent enough to reject you outright, then she's not worth pausing for. Not every blur needs to be brought into focus. Some things just need to be left behind, quietly, like they never should have happened in the first place. Don't kid yourself into thinking you're part of some special connection with a married woman. The raw truth is this: you're being pulled into an emotional game where you don't control the rules, and you're never going to win. Every glance, every confession, every touch, and all the ambiguity is designed to trap you in the gray zone. No commitment, no responsibility, no clarity, and no happy ending. If you don't walk away, you'll lose the one thing that matters most: your own self-respect. As a man, you don't need to be the chosen one for someone who can't stay loyal. You need to be the kind of man you can respect when you look in the mirror every morning. Boundaries don't appear on their own. They're drawn by men with the courage to say, "I don't belong here." And if you want to live as a man of honor, start right here. Walk away. No goodbyes needed. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.